27 men gathered together in a hotel, November 1883. That particular conference, where a map of a continent was placed on a wall, and 3 months locked up in that hotel, they began to negotiate what we now know as the partitioning of the African continent. These were people who came from different countries: Germany, United Kingdom, Britain, France, Belgium. All of these guys left after 3 months. Within 15 months, they had taken over the African continent, at least the administration of much of the African continent. How can a blessed continent have such poor people? What is most difficult about this conversation is that it's a perennial conversation. It's lasted more than one generation. And so I believe that finally a generation is arising that has the right platform to come together and speak, like I said, with one voice. Permit me to start by saying that history is not just the things that happened in the past. History is everything that shaped the future. History are the key events, conversations, decisions that changed the past and opened the door to the future. So it's not everywhere you've gone to that is historical. It's not everyone that you've met that is historical. It's not every decision that you've taken that is historical. But one thing is for sure: there are certain decisions, places, people that you've met and contacted that essentially you can't tell the story of how you've come about without referring to those moments. Interestingly, on the day that history will take place, most of the time the sun does not come out any earlier than usual. The sky is not a different color from blue. It is usually the future that tells exactly what happened in the past that was historic. Let me just put that into context. Please understand that the future is not a time zone that is yet to be revealed. The future is not a date on a calendar that is yet to be seen. The future is everything we can be but have not yet become. The future is everything we can do but have not yet done. The future is everything we can have but have not yet possessed. Please understand, what we are doing here is we are birthing and delivering the future. Why? Because the future is not ahead of us, the future is inside of us. Well, what I'm about to show you is a historic moment in time. Sometime in November 1883, 27 men gathered together in a hotel in Berlin. Many of you have heard, if you are students of history, you've heard about that particular conference where a map of a continent was placed on a wall. And 3 months locked up in that hotel, they began to negotiate what we now know as the partitioning of the African continent. What is so amazing to me is that these were people who came from different countries. These were 27 men who had a belief that nothing was impossible to them. Between the 15th of November 1884 and 26th of February 1885, these 27 men gathered together and showed up and had this map on the wall. Now, at that point in time, one would have said, how dare you think that you can go into a land that is not your city? It's not your county. It's not even your country. This is a continent. And yet these different guys from, next slide please, from these different countries, Germany, United Kingdom, Britain, France, Belgium, all of these guys left after 3 months. Within 15 months, they had taken over the African continent, at least the administration of much of the African continent. Why? When the question arose, how are we going to get it done? The answer was very simple. If as one people, can somebody please say with me, one people? Speaking with one voice. Can we say one voice? And having one vision. Is it okay for you to say one vision? And a very clear goal. What did we say together? we're told that nothing will be impossible for them. Well, yes, they did it. The British, the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Belgians, Germans, Italians, and even the Americans came together, and within, listen to this, 30 years from that, they had colonized the African continent. Exactly as they said they would. Remember that they were speaking different languages, but they spoke with one voice. Different languages, one voice. Watch this. 15 years later, in 1945, 78 young African leaders, but really when you think about them, they were boys and girls, gathered together in a hotel somewhere in the United Kingdom. And this particular meeting was called the Fifth Pan-African Congress meeting. And what happened was, these guys came and said, listen, we were born as second-class citizens in our own country, but we have to find a common purpose. And our purpose is to give to our children a better continent than the one that we were born in. These young guys did not have economic power. In that room, someone like Chief Obafemi Awolowo, but he wasn't chief at that time. He was just Obafemi Jeremiah Awolowo. And in 1945, he was 36 years old. He was in his penultimate year as a law student. So you can imagine a law student sitting down with Kwame Nkrumah, who was also another student at that time, and they were not thinking about how they were going to get a job. What they were thinking about was how they were going to save a continent. Well, within 15 years, once again, these young men and women, Julius Nyerere was there, Kwame Nkrumah was there, Jomo Kenyatta was in that room, from different countries, speaking really different languages, but they spoke with one voice and acted as one people. They came up with the Fifth Pan-African Congress agreement, and within, listen to this, within 30 years, by 1977, 50 of the African countries had attained independence, because 79 people came together as one people, not Ghanaian, not Nigerian, not Togolese, not Kenyan. They came together as one people, African. Can somebody say with me, one people? Say with me, one voice. Say with me, one vision. What would you say last? All right, then nothing is impossible. Every time we can be one people, we realize that the impossibility is nothing but a figment of our mind's imagination. To those who choose to live within the borders of the current reality, things that seem to be outside our norm is impossible. But I need you to please understand, impossibility is an illusion. It doesn't exist. It just takes us to be able to say we can create a new future. I love the way that Nelson Mandela said. He said, sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. He says, yours can be that great generation, but you must let your greatness blossom. In other words, whilst destiny and providence may choose an assignment for your generation, it's still up to your generation to accept responsibility to deliver on it. As one people, speaking with one voice, acting with one purpose and one vision, and running after one goal. That generation I spoke to you about was called the generation of liberation. It was the generation that had as one people, Africans, speaking with one voice, the Pan-African movement. They had a vision of independence in all of those African states, and the goal was to be able to have self-governance. The question is, what is our generation's vision? What is our generation's goal? Who's going to bring us together from across borders that have been created by visitors to our continent? Who's going to bring us together to get us to speak with one voice, louder than the tribe and tongues that we have been accustomed to? That we are indeed more than just a Yoruba or a Shakiri or Urobo or Ijo or Fulani, or that we are beyond the different tribes of the African continent. We are one people. Somebody please say with me, one people. Let me tell you, when people come together, what they can accomplish. In 1990, and most of you were already alive at this time, this was Sheikh Zayed Road, the most prominent road in a town city or a nation city called Dubai. And this is the Dubai World Trade Center building, 38-story buildings high, or 38 floors high. Within 13 years, this is what one people, speaking with one voice, acting with one goal and one vision can do. Just so that you can put it in context, this is the same building that happened. The question is, where were all these buildings 13 years before? They were in the mind of a generation that had not yet accepted responsibility. The moment they accepted responsibility, they released their possibilities into reality. Does somebody understand where I'm coming from? This is what it looks like now. This is what a generation can do. That's not, we have examples all over. On the 9th of August 1965, this was the Independence Day of Singapore. Everybody was, celebrating independence. And so they took a picture of the city-state from this angle. And within one generation, they came back to the exact geographic coordinates, the same exact coordinates, to take another picture. One generation. And this was what they had done. You understand what I'm trying to say? There is nothing that is impossible when we can act as one people. When we can come together with one identity. When we can speak with one voice, regardless of which language we are speaking with. When we can act with one vision. And when we can set a common goal, regardless of what it is that we're doing. Now, let me close with this. In 1885, 27 people left a room where they had come up with an agreement. But it wasn't that agreement that changed Africa. It was the fact that they went on and they followed up. Each one of them went to do what they agreed they were going to do. In 1945, on October 22, 79 people had left that hotel in Manchester. What changed their lot was not just the agreement, it was the follow-up. I'm challenging those in this room to not just be hearers, but doers. I believe that history is beckoning on us to be able to change a future that we all have as one people, speaking with one voice, acting with one picture of great success for our generation. And whilst the last generation was called the generation of liberation, may I suggest to you what our own generation is? We are the generation of transformation. We are the generation that will bring about a different Africa from the one that we inherited from our parents. Because in the end, no generation is ever judged by what kind of situation and condition it inherited from its parents. But every generation will be judged by what it bequeaths to its own children. It's time for us as one people with one voice, one purpose, to arise from this conference, thankful for the platform, and let us go and change and transform Africa. God bless you. Thank you so much for having me.